In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to insert node in a singly linked list. Now that we have a basic setup for our singly linked list, we have our properties that we're going to need to keep track of the head, tail, and the length, and this class right here, which will construct our individual nodes. So what I want to do is to start off with our first method of this class, and we're going to call it push. Okay, this will push in a new value into our singly linked list. So we will start off with a value as an argument. Here we got our pseudocode. So to start off, we're going to start off by creating a new node. So we're going to do call it new node equals new node, and then pass in the value. All right, this will construct our new node making use of this class here. Next, we're going to create a condition and check if head doesn't exist, then make head the new node. Say if not this dot head, then make this dot head equal new node. So we're going to make the new node that we created here to become the new head. Next, also make the tail the new node as well. So we're going to do this dot tail become the new head. But now that this new head is this new node is this dot head, we can say this dot tail to be this dot head. Okay. Else, which is right here, else make next property of the tail to be the new node. So if we arrive to this next block, then that means that, well, we already have a singly linked list that exists with a node. Okay, so therefore we arrive to this else block, in which case we want to push this new node to the very end of the list, which is the tail. So we do this dot tail, and next equals to the new node. Okay, because remember that the tail, this next property is set to null. If it's at the very end, the tail is going to be null because there's nothing at the very end. It's the tail for a reason, so it's going to be null. But now we're saying that we're going to now make this tail, that we're going to point it, we're going to connect it to the new node by saying this tail.next and point it to this new created node. In addition to that, we want to make this new tail and make it become the new node. So that's it for that. And then finally, remember, we're also keeping track of the length, right? The length of this singly linked list. So to keep track of it, over here we can do this dot length plus plus. This will increment this property here each time we create a new node, push in a new node with this method. And then finally, we want to return this, or return the object, the instance of this object. And then that is it. So we can test this out here by doing, I'm going to do list.push, and then let's start off by doing 7. I'm going to save that, and here, let me expand the console, and I'm going to run this code. And then here we get, right here, you see here in the console. So I have the head, which the head, which only has, it doesn't have a next, it's right now we only have a length of 1, right? So only one node. So you can see that the head has a value of 7, and also the tail should be the same, right? 7, because we're only dealing with one node currently that we pushed into this list. But now if I do the same thing to the next line, but I'm going to push, let's say I push 14. So now I should have 2, a length of 2, right? So I'm going to remove this, run the code again, expand this, and now look, I have a length of 2. But now look that the head right now has the value 7, but its next but now the next property has a value, and that next property has another node, which is 14. This value we just pushed in. Okay, but then now if we go into this node here with the value 14, you can see that the next property for that is null, because there's nothing there after that. But now let's collapse that head and look at the tail. The tail, well, this is the last node that we pushed into our list, right? With the node with the value 14. So it shows us indeed that we have a node with the value 14. So this push method for our singly linked list is working. But I want to push this explanation a little further for you guys to maybe help you understand, because if you, in the earlier video, when we started creating these constructors here, I gave you guys an analogy to explain how singly linked lists behave like a skyscraper without elevators, only stairs. Meaning that with a skyscraper, since we only have stairs, that requires us that if, say, we want to go to the 7th floor, well, we have to start from the first floor and make our way up one by one through each floor until we arrive to floor number 7. Okay, and that first floor is considered the head, and if we were to look at the top of the skyscraper, the last floor, it would be considered the tail. And so that top floor of the skyscraper will not have its next property will have a value of null, because it's the very last. It doesn't point to anything more because it's the last. So again, I want you to connect that analogy or looking at singly linked lists as a skyscraper when thinking about these properties here. But again, let me take this method here, and I'm just gonna rename this, and as if we were referring to this whole skyscraper thing. So I'm gonna call this here, and this is going to run exactly the same. I'm just going to name it differently. So this way, maybe it'll make more sense, because when we're talking about the skyscraper thing. So I'm going to call this push new floor. So imagine I have a method called push new floor, and what I'm talking about is like adding a new floor to the skyscraper. Okay, so here we see in the original push method we have we're creating a new node. Well, when we're talking about a skyscraper, let's say we call this variable new floor. So instead of new node, it's a new floor. And I know we don't have a class called floor, but again, just for sakes of the analogy here, instead of the node, we have a new floor, and this floor would have the same properties as this new node, meaning it would have this value here and the next being the connecting one floor to the next floor over. All right, so now we have that new floor property. All right, so next we have this condition here, right? So if not this dot head, so here I can say if not this dot first floor, okay, because remember the head is the very beginning. So when we're dealing with the skyscraper, the first floor is the very beginning. Okay, so if not this dot floor, then that means that, well, the construction of our skyscraper hasn't started. So we're going to make this new floor to be the first floor. So we're going to say this dot first floor equal to the new floor. And also we're going to make this dot last floor. Okay, in this case, when I'm saying the last floor, it's the same thing like this, referring to this dot tail, but for the analogy of the skyscraper. So this dot last floor equals to this dot first floor. Okay, because again, this is the first floor that we have in our building, so last floor is the first floor also, right? All right, so now let's continue with the else block, right? So here we have our else block right over here. So I can say else, let's see, we say this dot tail dot next equals the new node. So here we say, well, in this case, okay, so here this condition we're saying that, so we run this block of code if we're just starting, right? We don't have any floors yet. This is the very first floor, and we're just adding it to as the starting base of our construction site. Well, if we write to this else block, well, that means that, okay, currently we do have some floors, so this is where we arrive to the else block. So that means that now we just want to start attaching attach the floor, our newly created floor, to the very last floor, right? Or to the top of the skyscraper, right? So the way we do that is we can say this dot last floor dot next, and this next is the connection that we what we allowed to create that connection from a floor over to the next one. All right, so we do this last floor dot next equals to will become the new floor. All right, and that's this new floor that we created. So it's like we have a crane. So this is the floor, and it's just sitting at the very bottom of this, you know, this skyscraper construction site, right? Just imagine. And we have a crane that lifts up this new floor and carries it over to the very top of the last floor to attach on top of the last floor. Okay, and that's what we're doing here, is we're adding this new floor to the very last floor and using this next property to connect them. All right, and then lastly, we have to make this dot last floor to become the new floor. All right, so now this new floor that we created, well, now that's considered the last floor now that we attach it to the top of the skyscraper. All right, so that is it. I hope that can make more sense to you, or in understanding with this analogy with a skyscraper. Okay, but this is exactly the same as this. All right, but let's go ahead and just complete this, and then we would do like this dot length, and right where we added a new floor, so we just want to increment the number of floors we have in the skyscraper, and then we want to return this, and this is referring to like the instance of the object, in this case returning the skyscraper that we created, right? Return the skyscraper with whatever amount of floors it has and all that other stuff, information. All right, so this is this was my way of helping you guys to understand this push method even furthermore. I hope that helped, and we will continue on in another lecture.